Protest underway and growing in Baltimore. Demonstrators vowing to shut down the city until they get answers about the death of Freddie Gray. 25-year-old Gray suffered a spinal injury while in police custody and died days later. Police admitting there are holes in the investigation and that they failed to provide Gray the medical attention he needed after his arrest.
We know he was not buckled in the transportation wagon as he should have been. No excuses for that, period. We know our police employees failed to get him medical attention in a timely manner multiple times. There are still many questions that we don't have the answers to, and some open-ended areas that we need to focus heavily on.
Joining me now, Robert Bianchi. He's a criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor and trial attorney, and Alex Little, defense attorney and former assistant federal prosecutor. Thanks to both of you for joining us this afternoon.
Good afternoon. No problem, Arthel.
You know what, Alex, I want to start with you. Let's talk about what happens now in terms of legal recourse for the family, as well as charges and punishment for the officers involved.
So this is a murder investigation, and it should be treated that way. And I think with the press attention, it's going to be treated that way. And that means there are a number of people here, could be 5, could be 6, who know what happened. And those folks are going to be interviewed. They've already been interviewed once, but I suspect they'll be interviewed again. And the investigators are going to start to have to uncover what actually happened between the time Freddie Gray was arrested and the time that he ended up in the ambulance. There's going to be a look for other witnesses, other things like surveillance tape they've talked about. But you're going to see the state police involved, state investigators, and I expect you'll see federal investigators now. The Department of Justice has confirmed that. Yeah,
but I asked you in terms of legal recourse for the family and punishment and charges for those officers involved.
Well, for the family, what they can do is obviously sue the city and sue the officers for wrongful death, and that's likely what I expect they would do in this situation. The officers could face charges, state charges of things like homicide, negligent homicide, assault charges. If there's any sort of attempt to cover it up, there'd be obstruction. And there's also federal charges, 2 in particular, that might apply here, which would be a conspiracy to deprive Mr. Gray of his rights, and a similar federal rights charge of depriving rights under the color of law, which is what they would have done.
Robert, let me bring you into the conversation now. Alex just mentioned a state or local investigation. I want to talk to you about the federal investigation in terms of what that will delve into. And do you think that will bring about changes in police policy in Baltimore? And you can start, though, Robert, because I understand you have a problem with them investigating their own case, so to speak.
Yeah, I think the police commissioner is actually doing a very good job and being very transparent. I agree with all of his statements as a prosecutor, a head prosecutor, and the manner in which he's telling everybody, being transparent about what's happening and where he needs to set his investigation. But I have an internal trust of any police agency that's investigating itself. I believe deeply that these investigations should be conducted by an independent agency to avoid even the public optic that something unfair is occurring here. At the same time that this investigation is going, as was just noted, you not only have a state prosecution for potential murder, manslaughter, and things of that nature, but you have a federal civil rights criminal investigation that will determine whether or not his civil rights were deprived. And I think that the police are going to have a very difficult time in this case, because with the 2 admissions by the police commissioner that he was not buckled and that he was shackled and he was handcuffed in those vans, which I've been in personally myself. There's a lot of activity, a lot of movement, and there have been many cases where people have been killed and seriously injured by not having people properly restrained. And there were 3 occasions in this case where he wasn't properly restrained. To me, that's a gross deviation from the standard of care based on how the police are trained, and that could definitely lead to a homicide prosecution.
Robert, I'm going to stay with you. You mentioned that you have been involved in such cases, and as we speak to you, we're looking at live pictures there in front of City Hall in Baltimore. You can see a huge crowd gathering there, and it's still early in the day, only 4:45 there locally. And Robert, since this case came to light, we have now heard about the so-called rough ride. Is that such a thing?
Yeah, listen, I was an ambulance driver for many years. I work with cases where I pick people up that have been subjected to this. A rough ride is a real phenomenon. This is a circumstance, and you have to understand, he is now in police custody. He has handcuffs on, he has foot shackles that are on. He's completely vulnerable. And what happens in those vans, which are very difficult to keep your balance in, is there are hard cuts in one direction or stop and go tactics where the person is literally being thrown around like a rag doll and has no ability to use his feet and hands to control the activity and the inertia and the motion that's occurring in these vans. I'm not saying that occurred here, but the police commissioner himself said he is concerned that that may be something that's at play here. And remember, this police commissioner has let go of 50 people people since 2012 for police conduct, misconduct-related cases. So one has to be very suspicious of what occurred here.
And Alex, I want to bring you back in now as we look at these live pictures there in Baltimore. You see a line of police there guarding, standing quite stoic as they have been throughout the demonstrations there. You know, Alex, there's still the questions, lingering questions, one of which is why Mr. Gray was arrested in the first place. Will we ever be able to determine the official cause of death? And then I ask you to close with for me, Alex, if this situation there in Baltimore will have national ramifications in terms of change in police protocol and policy.
I think it should. I'll answer your last question. I mean, I think Robert hit on it. This is not a case the police should be investigating themselves. And we haven't really spoken about the fact that there were a number of days that went by from the time the incident occurred until he actually passed away in the hospital bed. And if this had been treated like a real criminal case from the first moment he showed up at the hospital, there would have been an opportunity, I think, to do the investigation better. So what I expect moving forward is a lot more scrutiny on this idea that when things happen that shouldn't happen, with somebody who gets arrested and doesn't have a broken neck, ends up with a broken neck, that needs to be treated like a crime immediately, and there needs to be an impartial group that comes and looks at those cases and starts investigating like any other case and doesn't give the police officers involved time to potentially collude about stories and to get to the bottom, so we will know at the end of the day what actually happened.
We have to leave it there, and you just saw, we showed pictures of a very large crowd gathering there. Many lingering questions, as I said, and as we look at those images there, I want to thank Alex Little, I want to thank Robert Bianchi, and we will talk to you both again at some point during this investigation. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Arthel.
Absolutely.